Welcome to an episode of InRange. We're out here at Handgun Brutality, and we have something very interesting to show you. This is Jeremy from the Booligan Shooting Sports, and you have used your skills and 3D printing to develop a gun specifically to be perfect for our
compact carry division.
You got it. So why don't you talk to them about, Fagan?
So we have two divisions for modern handguns at Handgun Brutality. One is the service pistol division, which frankly I lifted most of the rules for that from the stealth division at Rio Salato's Superstition Mountain Mystery 3 gun, because I find the dimensional requirements to be an interesting problem to solve to make the most effective gun that fits in that box. There's no limitations on accessories or components. It's just if it fits in the box, it's good to go, right? So we made a compact carry division variant of this where the gun with its first magazine has to fit completely inside the box with the slide parallel to the top of the box. And I think that's a good way to push innovation, because ultimately you want the most effective gun that you can carry reasonably. So the idea for the division was like things like Hellcats, P365s, those sorts of guns with optics on the potentially to fit in it. And I challenged Jeremy to come up with a gun that is optimized for the division.
So you've essentially, out of your mind, squirted this thing into existence.
That was the idea. The idea, I don't necessarily like rules except for challenging the spirit of them.
That's what rules are for.
I will follow the letter of the rule exactly, but I will completely explode the spirit of it, because that's innovation. I like to think without trying to sound too pretentious. But the size limitation is a really interesting one. And a lot of the guns that I design, for those that aren't familiar with some of the work that I do, I tend to do a lot of like sci-fi designs, a lot of things that are just more aesthetically interesting than just a 3D print a Glock at home because you don't want to go buy one for whatever reason. But was to design something that had sort of those sci-fi aesthetics, but actually had a lot of good ergonomic features, while still delivering performance features that you normally would not be able to have in the compact carry division. So you mentioned things like, Hellcats can run with an optic, but you're going to be saddled with a short magazine, usually, if not a flush fit magazine, maybe a tiny little finger extension, so your capacity is going to be lower, and it's hard. It's hard, and I'm talking about this after having completed Handgun Brutality, sitting next to a very difficult stage where we're getting his 100 yards, correct?
75.
75. Getting 75 yards on, hits on a silhouette with a handgun.
And of course, the shorter guns are usually snappier with more muzzle flip.
Yep, absolutely. And for those that are familiar with my designs, I hate muzzle flip. You can compensate those out with, barrel devices, with muzzle devices. I go a little old school sometimes with tungsten weight. I am kind of known for putting tungsten where tungsten ought not be on handguns. And I'll pull this out really quick just so we can kind of take a look at some of the features. As you can see,
it barely fits. It literally barely fits.
It barely fits. And we'll just confirm that we are on a clear handgun. So you wouldn't believe the amount of people that complain that I flag them through the camera.
Yeah, we've heard it too.
It's a thing that happens. So underneath this in the frame, rewinding a bit, this frame is 3D printed. It came from a design that I had earlier put together and then decided, well, let's take this design that I've already put together that's very ergonomic, it fits the hand very well, and let's just make a race gun out of it. And part of that is including these three little channels underneath that hold tungsten weight. Tungsten weight, it's fixed in there, so it helps add weight directly under the barrel to help reduce muzzle flip while shooting.
So if I may, one way you would do that is add a muzzle device. Now you do have porting, but beyond
We'll
that,
get to that.
adding weight will reduce muzzle flip as well, but you've not increased the length as in the process.
Correct. And your guys' rules do kind of allude to that not being okay in certain divisions, namely flashlights. I noticed in your guys' in the rule set, it says if you have a flashlight on your gun, you have to prove that it is actually functional as a flashlight, because guys like me will print flashlight lookalikes
And literally fill them with weight.
Fill them with weight. Fill them
Lead
with
or
tungsten or lead.
something.
So I'm like, well, we'll just build it into the frame itself, so it's just a design feature that's there. It's actually standard Pinewood Derby car weight size. They're 3/8 of an inch. It prints well. You just clean it up and drill them in. They're secured with a couple of grub screws there. The big difference is I wanted to, as you mentioned, have some sort of compensating device as well. I initially thought that I would be able to use a standard optic with a threaded barrel, and that was too long. And then I came across this technique and really liked it instead. But I did go with basically factory G18C style ports. These were done by a machinist, not by myself, someone who's much more talented than me. And he did a fantastic job on that. For optics, as you know, in the division, it's very hard to have a 19 length grip with like an RMR profile optic. It will not fit unless you get like a really shrunk down, same footprint, and then you're pushed into this division. And this division has a lot more competitors and a lot more capable handguns, and I like working in that very limited division. So I came across one of these Leupold Delta Point Micros, I think they call them.
I used one and liked it quite a bit. My only issue was in Finland, the lens fell out on me.
That would be
problematic. But that said, the profile and size that it presents on the gun is a really attractive feature.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things it does is it hangs out the back. Again, anyone who's familiar with my designs knows I throw real big beaver tails on guns just because I feel like I got slide bite once as a child. And I'm like, never again, never again. So now everything has, at least this one has it for a purpose where it just fits well. And
it makes sense. It's attractive, but it also suits the Delta Point Micro.
Exactly. The problem being on a Glock 26 profile slide and barrel and a Leupold Delta Point Micro, you're still 3/8 of an inch too long.
Okay.
It's literally like 7 3/8 inch too long. I could quit, or we could just completely re-engineer the entire Glock slide. And that's what we did. We cut 3/8 of an inch off the back of a Glock slide. You can see normally where the dust, the dust cover would be there, and where the ejector, those are now visible. Those would normally be hidden by the slide. The slide's not there anymore. It was machined down. There's no more slide plate at the rear. This now operates as the slide plate.
Wow, all right.
Cool. It's cool in one ways and very concerning in another. The very concerning part is I didn't want to get a firing pin through the cheek. I have seen that happen, unfortunately, with Glocks before on cheap, people using occasionally cheap aftermarket slide plates. You can get
that's a suboptimal event.
Suboptimal event. And how this mounts normally is it just screws into a dovetail insert. A dovetail insert slides into the dovetail, and then this just mounts to it. It's not actually like drilled and tapped into the slide.
Yeah, it's a tension fit.
I drilled and tapped it into the slide. So I extended it down, tapped it. So now there's screws that go down just like you would have if you had an RMR or a Hollow Sun or whatever. So it is now a structural part of the gun. But overall, like, it just, I love the way it looks. It's so just aesthetically interesting. It looks like it's from some near future movie or TV show.
It definitely has a cyberpunk 20 minutes into the future look.
Yeah, and it's like you could almost see this being a cop gun or a law enforcement gun in a movie that takes place, 5-6 years from now. But at the same time, still being able to deliver some interesting performance that you wouldn't normally be able to get without, one, being able to 3D print, being able to design and 3D print this stuff. And two, thankfully, and this is where the cheating comes out a little bit, having access to a very good machinist.
That is pretty damn flat.
All right, so we just shot this thing, and it actually outperformed my expectations. It shoots flat for what it is. I mean, it shoots flat for a full-size pistol.
Yeah, I mean, watching you shoot it, it's actually going muzzle negative.
Yep, you might have a little too much porting.
We got 4 ports in there. We get rid of one. Balance it out.
So this STL and this design is going to go public?
It is. I'm a huge believer in everybody having a right to arm themselves freely and openly as they can. So every design that I release, after it goes through an initial beta testing period, which is supported by people who wish to subscribe to my website to help support the work. Ammo's expensive, parts are expensive. But once it completes that beta testing, everything that I design gets released publicly for free. I have an Odyssey page, which is, as platform neutral as it can get in order to release those things. And this one, now that we've got a little bit more testing and we had some feedback from some other beta testers that built it at their own shops, we will be ready to get this released publicly very soon here.
So where can the audience find your site and your work?
So all of my free files, everything that has been released is at BooliganCustomGunworks.com.
Okay.
If you feel like supporting the work, if you want to get access to early beta files, that's handled through BooliganShootingSports.com.
Okay, so either one of those they can find you.
Either one of those they can find me, and of course my YouTube channel and my other socials where they can see some of the very, very dumb things that I make on the regular.
Put some links in the description as well.
Perfect.
So first of all, thank you for joining us out here for the match, but more importantly, thank you for doing this and sharing this with the audience and the world, because that's what we're talking about. This ability for people to download this and use it as they see fit or how they need is liberating in a way that, as we talked about before, it's like the Gutenberg press, right?
Exactly.
The 3D printers are changing the world.
They really are.
And people like you releasing designs like this are part of that.
Well, I appreciate the invite and I appreciate the challenge. It was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get out to more of these matches and see what other challenges you guys can.
We'll see you out here some more. And I look forward to seeing more of your designs. Thanks for watching.